Hi. I'm going to share my screen really quickly. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Wendy. I work at the STEPS Initiative, which is a Canadian-based public arts organization. And we really develop programs that are one of a kind public art plans, installations, and engagement strategies that foster vibrant communities. So we really try to do a lot of different projects in the public space that make city living special for everyone. And in this case, we're based in Toronto. And in terms of art plans, installation, and engagement, that can range from anything from like mural to large scale installations to different pop-up activations from artists. And some of our core mandates come from community engagement, artistic excellence. We really value the process of capacity building to make sure that emerging artists and professional artists and youth are getting opportunities to build their leadership skills. And there's also diversity and equity and also public realm innovation. And we really try to make sure that all of our projects align with those mandates. And so here's an example of something that we've done last year that's very heavily community engaged. We had worked with the local neighboring youth where this mural is at. And because of COVID, there's a lot of community engagement that we have pivoted to online. And there's a lot of programming changes that we aren't able to do in person anymore because of the lack of being able to see each other in person. So there's definitely a lot of different changes that we've done to the programming that we run to make sure that it still collects valuable data and valuable feedback to form these public art plans, but that it is adhering to the public health guidelines. So we also have a social enterprise called the Patch Project, where we take underused spaces in construction hoarding to put artwork up. And so this is also another engagement opportunity for the emerging artists and also creates an income opportunity for them. So all of these projects are still going, but just at a slower pace now that things are just slow in general. So there's also a lot of different opportunities that we've created in the beginning of the pandemic throughout the whole couple of months that we had experienced this time together. Something that we had pivoted to beyond all of these call for participation that I want to talk about specifically, it's this initiative that we started in the beginning of April called the Insiders Artist Project. And in the beginning, when there's a lot of concerns over the lack of opportunities, there's, like you guys all mentioned before, a lot of the artist base are freelance. And so there's a lot of gigs that are being canceled. And so we really want to try to use this as an initiative to try out engaging artists to create a public art installation in the comfort of their home that's public facing. So it still could create a public art activation, but at the same time could generate an income opportunity. And so this was a very successful call. We've gotten project proposals from across Canada. And so the 8 selected projects that we have gotten at the end includes an land acknowledgement where there's like a sound installation. There's something in Nova Scotia where this artist worked with their son to create these flags and then eventually create a performance piece to signal each other with these flags. There's also like an installation piece where it lights up using upcycle materials like water bottles and like fishing wire and just all kind of different creative things. And then there's also something called the Corona Disco Ball in Ontario, where the artists collected these large-scale mural to create an infinity room in a gallery space that's, I think, across from his home. And so all these are very exciting projects to showcase the local artistic talent across Canada, but also to activate public spaces in a very manageable way. And so we are still featuring the remaining of the Insiders Artist Project on our Instagram that you can definitely check out later on. And I'm just gonna end up with my contact here. And because I have 2 minutes left, I'm going to talk about a couple other future opportunities that we're creating during the summer months, especially when the summer months is our busiest production season in the past years. It will be mural making, it will be youth engagement, it will be a lot of different public spaces, a lot of different activities that use those public spaces, but all of that have now pivoted to online. But also we're really trying to work with local initiatives and communities and local BIAs, business improvement areas, to be able to still create income opportunities for artists, professional and emerging, but also to like liven up the public space in a manner that's definitely different than before. So check out our Instagram, check out our website, and I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, thank you very much to all the speakers. Alan, would you now allow everybody to give a round of applause?
Okay. Yeah. Ellen didn't make me laugh.
Okay, thank you so much. We've now got a bit of time for Q&A. If anybody has any questions, Leonora, I think you had one. Could you put them into the chat, please? For those of you who maybe haven't looked at it, the chat is in the bottom of your screen, and it's in the middle with the word chat. And there's been a whole pile of information going in there whilst the speakers have been going on, including background information on the speakers. So do we have any questions? This is a question for Angus. Are Outdoor Arts UK aware or willing to engage with the Freelancers Task Force? As far as I'm aware, the outdoor arts sector has been a part of this movement to support freelancers and lobby the government. Angus.
Yeah, we have been sharing information with the actual freelancers about that task force. But we're not freelancers ourselves, but it's certainly something we are aware of, yes, and we've been encouraging the membership to engage with that on an individual basis.
Okay, again, Angus, you mentioned performances in gardens. Can you say who's been doing this, please?
Well, there's lots of anecdotal examples of that. I've seen some in Cornwall from Bash Street. I've seen he's called Thingamajig, Matt Pang, cycling into people's gardens on a bicycle to juggle. There have been various ones of those from companies on quite a small local level rather than publicized level. So we're gathering bits of evidence on that. I have to say it's quite anecdotal though at the moment.
Okay, also I should point out that something which Nadia said earlier on, there's in Copenhagen, our partners there at KIT, at KIT, have been doing 100 days with 100 performers, a performance each day, walking through Copenhagen. And it's really worth checking that out. And when I'm not speaking, I'll try and find a link and put it on the chat. A question here from Isabel: creative invention, inspiration comes from trials and tribulation. So it is obvious your minds are busy figuring out this new normal. But that's a statement, I think, rather than a question. But there's a question from Marcelo from RM Sanchez Camus for Wendy. Are there any initiatives to link internationally, and how can small, intimate DIY works at home connect to a larger community across the globe, yet still be manageable? Recreating famous paintings was a great example that started grassroots. Thanks, Marcelo. Wendy?
I guess to speak specifically to the way that we have pivoted our programming, because a lot of them are very local, like hyper local based. And so in terms of it connecting different initiatives like nationally and also globally, we've really just utilized the hashtags that we have. So for the Insiders Artist Project, we have utilized a hashtag for Steps Insiders, which has generated a lot of different traffic from people looking at the live stream of one of the performers in Victoria, BC. And then there's also a couple of different like organizations that have been sharing our opportunities. And there's also another initiative following the success of following the success of Insiders that we are going to feature very soon. It's called Steps Home Base. And because our programmings are very focused in community building, Steps Home Base is more focused on community engagement. So there's a lot of different, so instead of 8 projects, we have 6 projects for Steps Home Base. And the home base projects are going to have a community engagement aspect to it. So some of the artists have uploaded like PDFs to their websites that people can download, and then that could be like anywhere in the world because everything is online. And so if you check out those 2 hashtags, you'll be able to see the specific ones that we have done. In terms of, I guess, like globally speaking, we've really tried to make sure that we are also researching the opportunities nationally, but also like across the board. And so this is an like good opportunity for like a Canadian-based organization to connect with all of you guys who are in the theater sectors and art sector across the UK. And so it's just very exciting in general. I'm not I don't have a concrete answer for you about that, but I hope that clarifies for you.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Alan, what drove the decision to choose to make your digital performance live other than specific attempts for audience interaction? What advantages does performing in live time give over recorded performances?
Well, so I work with a lot of artists and they're all live performers. And so the drive basically was behind that really, and is what I'm more interested in. I think also we're not filmmakers, and you know, there are people who are good at that, and we don't make TV. What we're good at is live interaction largely. And so that was the main driver behind our decision. Obviously, in some ways, it's an arbitrary decision. But I think playing with that and the fact that I mean, particularly in the current situation, is live performance is missing. And so I think sort of trying to provide some form of live, experimenting with the forms of live performance online was much more interesting to us and the artists we were talking to, rather than making content that exists forever online.
Thanks, Alan. Just seen that Nadia has put up the link for the project in Denmark, which is actually, the name of the company is Metropolis. But then on to Werner, looking at the many art projects that are already planned and happening in Graz even today, do you think that the partnerships of local council and other organisations has been improved because of the COVID crisis? Unmute.
There are so many different levels in Austria in the art world that you can say what I can see is that there is a very good connection and interaction between artists and some festivals. The Austrian government for about 2 months was really very disorientated with a lot of questions, and they couldn't help a lot to the artists, but now it's step by step, it's better and better. But what I see is that there is a very big focus on the situation of people and artists, how they live and how they work, and the conditions on their work in this crisis. And so I think there will be some changes in the future for the way we work together. And and I also believe that the work of artists will increase in the question of how they will be seen in the development of the society in the future, because now you can see that it's very important that the exchange between the art and the people. So I think what we have to think about is the community work, and also that what we have to think about is very social in the next times.
Thank you there, Bernie. So there's a lot of questions coming in. I'm just going to do 2 or 3 more. One for Angus and Alan. Is there more interest and plans from programmers for work happening in more rural landscape green spaces and sort of moving away from the urban focus? Angus?
Yeah, it's certainly something that's being discussed. And there are indeed some of the more rural festivals that seem to be in a very strong position. So it's part of the evolution, but at the moment, I wouldn't say it's a particular focus that a urban council is thinking of taking people long distances outside their town or city centre in order to engage with the culture. But I think the festivals that have history of that in the short to, or the medium to long term could be in quite a good place. It's certainly something we're discussing. I'll just pick up on drive-ins. We just had a lot of this yesterday in our meeting, and I think nobody thinks it's a great replacement, but given that it's deemed relatively safe to be locked inside a car, I think it's a vague offering, but I don't think anyone sees it as a replacement for any kind of cultural art form in the long term, and especially with, we don't really want to encourage people driving to events, obviously.
Alan, do you want to say anything?
Okay, I went to Oral Festival last year for the first time, and that's a sort of extraordinary thing around, so all sorts of things about the whole sort of, so up here, I'm looking for possibilities about how we might assist sort of younger artists looking into that sort of thing, because we've got quite a lot of countryside in Scotland. There's loads, it's everywhere. So I'm kind of looking for things now to do with that. We're doing some stuff up in Findhorn in September. But yeah, watch this space, hopefully in the autumn. Okay,
thanks very much, Alan. We've got to stop there with the questions. There's a lot more. If you look on the chat, you'll see, for instance, very interesting comments being made from Findhorn about the work they're doing. But we're now moving into the next section, and I would like to introduce Martin Danziger from Modo Scotland, Louise Richards from Motion House, Mary Jenners from Culture Mix Arts, and James McPherson from Artisani. So over to you, and there will be Q&A after this session.
Hello, so my name is Martin. I'm from Modo up in the north of Scotland. And I suppose like most of us, I'd normally start with photos of previous work or an anecdote about previous projects, but we're all in this strange cusp of having spent months in hiatus and limbo. We actually start delivery on Monday. So maybe in a week's time I can tell you how that goes. But for now, most of our activity is still on hold, and who knows how things will pan out. And while I suppose we all have a moral, cultural obligation to make the best of this crisis, we mustn't forget the damage and the death that this has done to our nation, our world. And as we look to find a path forward, we need to be deeply respectful of that situation. And I think we need to remember that this isn't just one crisis. This is a series of overlapping crises. There is a comorbidity of COVID, of Black Lives Matter, of climate change, of Me Too movement. And as Glasgow's just reminded us of the plight of refugees. And considered all together, this really clearly puts paid to the platitude that we're all in this together. COVID has exposed and exacerbated an inequality in this country and beyond, and where gender, race, class, income all have become indicators of how some people will suffer more and are suffering more. And our work with the kind of disadvantaged in our own communities up here is already showing very clearly the damage that the crisis has done to their well-being already. And there are some real and serious kind of pitfalls ahead that possibly will sort of dwarf the initial kind of sheer financial hit of this crisis. It's been wonderful to see how lots of creative industries have responded to the crisis, and how we've all found our own way of using our skills and our resources and our abilities to respond to the crisis, whether that's providing meals or sewing scrubs or face masks, whether that's providing essential services, or as we're about to start doing, running a holiday hub for the vulnerable young people and giving them the free meals that have finally been allowed for them. But we mustn't fall into a trap of being sucked into a kind of Captain Tom syndrome of believing that core essential services can be rescued by charity or charitable activities rather than by sustained funding and investment. And we must be careful to protect the funding for those other organisations as increasingly kind of, I suppose, inevitably funding and focus is diverted to specific COVID activities. And we've seen some of the grants disappear precisely because the funds have been held back or withdrawn or restructured. And we also must be careful not to see our creative processes subverted by a charity imperative, where positive, upbeat expression is all that is commissioned. we've already had the phrases that said, we don't want anything too heavy just now, or, you know, so we need something to cheer people up now. And we need to be careful that our work can still be challenging and stimulating as well as purely uplifting. And we need to be careful that we are not bargained down financially or artistically. But this crisis does provide an opportunity, and the complete disruption of almost every aspect of social life gives us pause, and it allows us a moment to reflect and to consider before we restart. And I suppose this conference is an example of how, before we commit to a headlong rush back to resume previous activities or retreat forever into a hermetically sealed Zoom room, this is a chance to consider what is important and how we can do it differently, creatively, safer, better. Because this isn't really what the rules allow us to do. It's been very clear looking at our government and other governments in the world how if people want to do something enough, we will create the rules to make it happen. So we need to ask ourselves, how do we champion and protect and recommence the conviviality of assembly, the intimacy of physical proximity, the delight of eye contact? And how do we re-examine our practice and try to remodel it to be kinder, more equal, more accessible? And while the old system is down and we're not being forced into large-scale spectacles or helicoptered in shows or companies or artists, and the old bastions of culture, the kind of venues have been closed for now, there is a real chance for a liberating opening up of opportunities in the public realm to democratize and to level cultural contributions, where performing in town squares or car parks or playgrounds brings culture to where people are, and where we can create work that is small scale, local, embedded in the community, and bottom up. Creativity that will bring us together, will heal us, will find commonality and question our ideas of belief. And sure, we have to accept that hundreds of us will lose our jobs through this crisis, and we will be in turmoil for years. But this is an opportunity to grow back more local, more connected, more compassionate, and more creative. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Louise. I'm a founder and director of Motion House, a company that I've been running now for 32 years. And I have to say that over that time, I think I've fought my way through 4 recessions, but nothing has prepared any of us for what we're now facing. And I think words that I've heard so far from the speakers so far around opportunism, adaptation, and fundamentally reinvention, I think that those are the real core themes that are driving all of us as a sector to reimagine, redeliver, respond, but also not all try and take the same path to a solution. To talk a little bit about myself and my position, Motion House is a dance circus company. We're based in the Midlands. We tour nationally and internationally, and going into April of this year, we should have been going into a solid year of touring. Our work straddles both indoor and outdoor, and we were due to have 7 outdoor productions touring in rep throughout the sort of classical season from April into September, followed by a really huge and enormous indoor tour. And overnight we lost £400,000 worth of outdoor touring, and within a month we had lost all of our earned income for the year, which was £700,000. So if anything was to sort of throw us onto our uppers like the rest of the sector, it was you know, the sort of the drive to survive, but also how to survive and reinvent without losing the core of and the heart of the work that we feel so passionately about, and we believe passionately we still need to find a way to deliver to our communities, to our audiences, to the world. We've always aimed to create a very flexible repertoire. So we are fortunate in that we have very small intimate duets performed by dancers who happen to house share or be couples, very, very handy in the current situation, through to much larger touring work. And like everybody, we've been doing a lot of thinking and a lot of planning. And the thing that we've resisted has been the sort of the siren call to make socially distanced work. Because what was apparent to us from the beginning is that that's not what we do well. And there's already been many examples cited of brilliant work that is already actually socially distanced, if we look at it through that lens, or which lends itself brilliantly. And I think it's really, really important that as a sector, we don't all try and emulate the work that certain colleagues are already doing brilliantly. I think we've got a lot to learn from looking at that work, seeing it afresh in a new way, and picking from that what we can take in order to find the strengths and maintain the challenge and the stimulation and the purity of the work we're already making. So for us as a company that specialise in very close physical contact, our performers throw each other around, and that's a real hallmark of our work. It's what delights our audiences. Our work doesn't lend itself to solos. We work in close proximity, and our work is about a kinesthetic connection with our audiences. It's about touching them. It's about real humanity. And the physical engagement of our performances, for us, is what drives that connection. It's what speaks to our audiences. And that's what we have been passionately engaged with, working out where we go from here. Strikes me there's a lot of P's involved in the way that we're working. We're planning, we're looking at process, we're looking at how we produce our product and how we go on to present that product. And in doing that, how do we put in place protocols? I found myself reading so much guidance through various connections, whether it's Outdoor Arts UK, UK Theatre, or One Dance UK. I've been reading NASA risk assessments. I've been looking at return to performance guidance for the dance sector. I've been looking at draft strategy that's going backwards and forwards within the events and entertainments working group that feedback through the Cultural Renewal Task Force. I'm on the West Midlands Cultural Response Unit. And one of the things that's incredible about this situation that we find ourselves in is that in amidst the devastation, it's really building and strengthening our communities. And I think we've got an enormous amount to learn from each other. And from unpicking all those documents that are going around, have those conversations that are taking place, I think that there is a way to find our way through that's about going back to our artists, going back to our sense of responsibility, going back to our passion and our drive, our investment in our mission, and looking at how can we learn from outdoor construction protocol, how can we look at schools and universities and the work and the use of bubbles to create small team working groups where our artists have a buy-in to that, who agree to take personal responsibility for their own process in helping us to continue to deliver fantastic work that can then be produced in whatever socially distant audience structure we are allowed to deliver within. We've looked at dance trails, we've looked at durational work, we've looked at extremely visual work. We've thought about putting our work on plinths. We already put our work up high. We've thought about distance, watching from a distance. There's lots of different ways of presenting the work, which I think are actually really exciting, and particularly when we are looking at animating a wider location or a city or a town or a village through a dance trail. I think there's a real interesting, wonderful opportunity there to look again at how we present our work. But what I think I feel really passionate about is being sure that we respect those artists who are making fabulous solo work and fabulous walkabout, and that we as a company that makes group work that's powerful and physical and is about contact, that we continue to strive to find a way to reinvent that work and still deliver that through our process, through putting in place a protocol that's about enabling, through remembering that a risk assessment isn't there to trip us up, but it's to allow us to have a vision and to deliver work safely. And fundamentally, we have to work with our teams in order to reimagine our work and remember and remind ourselves why we're doing it and how we can take it out there to the world. Thank you.
Hi, greetings everyone. I'm Mary Guinness and I'm from Culture Mix. I'm from Culture Mix Arts. We're a carnival arts, we're classified as a carnival arts organisation, although a lot of the work we do is around music as well as all the art forms. And our reason for being, apart from employment, is to bring people together, to enable them to experience the joy of being together and creating music or attending a carnival. So as you can imagine, overnight due to the lockdown, every single element of our work was literally decimated. No more collective collaboration, no more united and creative joy. However, you know, we rallied fairly quickly once we'd gotten over the initial shock, which I have to say, for me and my team, I have a team of 6, and we do produce work locally, nationally and internationally. We're based in Berkshire. And the effect it had on us was absolutely devastating, in the sense that we felt majorly incapacitated in the first instance. And it was only through the support of our board and making a plan to rally the troops and come up with a strategy. Of course, we had to do some firefighting that enabled us to move forward. And our main objective was how we're going to support the communities who engage in our work, which is quite huge. We do enormous amount of work in schools. We run several quite large scale events each year. And this is without all the private bookings and commissions that we get for our orchestra and our various collectives. So it was really about how we adapt and how we could mitigate the work that, you know, we wanted to deliver in an impossible situation. For instance, we run a steel orchestra, and nobody had instruments at home. So how could we bring them together? What we did is we organized a way of them accessing the instruments safely. And then, you know, our main objective was to, as I said, maintain the morale, and then embarked on some new projects. One specific one was a distant mix project. I'll try and put something in the background so that you can kind of get an idea. It's just a simple image. So we managed to get everybody together, but we did this through audio and video, and it was quite challenging for us, and for me particularly, because I had to you know, climb that hugely steep learning curve that one has to do, you know, learn some new skills and to enable this to happen. But what it did provide for us was new opportunities and unexpected opportunities to work even more widely internationally. It was easier in a lot of ways to access people because there wasn't that barrier, that physical barrier of, you know, booking artists from abroad, bringing them here. That was basically gone as a result of the isolation. And we found that through this we could create new events and work differently into the future and find ways in which we could kind of bring people together. And this is having an effect on how we continue to work after the lockdown. So we've managed to repurpose our projects. We're an Arts Council national portfolio organisation. So we're more fortunate than most in the sense that, you know, we get regular investment, but that investment is only a proportion of our generated income, and literally losing thousands per week. But we're determined to maintain a positive outlook and find a way in which not only could we keep our our community that engages with our work together, but also manage some other disrupting elements that came in to play. For instance, the Black Lives Matter movement, and that was quickly followed by 3 people being brutally murdered in a really exquisite garden in which we have in the centre of Reading, because we're based in Reading in Berkshire. And this threw a massive curveball into the mix. It was enough to be managing isolation, the mental health issues that comes with that, not being able to bring our people together to do those rehearsals, performances, and that expression of creativity, which is collective. And then on top of that, you had the Black Lives Matter movement caused by what happened in America, but created a huge ripple of anxiety on top of the isolation here in the UK, to which many looked to us to support, advise and guide them on how they could go forward, taking this into consideration. And of course, we felt a sense of responsibility. We felt compelled to rise to those requests and do whatever we could to find a positive way forward, despite the dreadfulness of this occurrence that brought the Black Lives Matter movement about. And the same with the Forbury. There was a lot of demand on us to make comment about those issues, both the Black Lives Matter and the Forbury murders. And this was on top of COVID, on top of the isolation. And despite this, we are able to maintain a positive outlook, manage this by creating resources for people who want to sort of enlighten themselves about why Black Lives Matter, to create safe spaces where people can come to, still isolate or distance at least, and engage in activities like rehearsal, like music rehearsals and other activities that are limited but still enable people to take part. And this has been a huge, it's been a huge benefit for not only us as an organisation, but for the people we work with. And despite everything, we feel optimistic that the COVID, the lockdown, the isolation, and all these things that have happened that have disrupted all our lives and the lives of those around the world, we feel that some positive has to come out of this, and that the positive is that together we'll find a new way of working, that together we'll unite to ensure that racism is diminished in the future, that together, you know, we'll all think differently about the future, we'll be kinder to each other, we'll support each other, and we'll hopefully, as idealistic as it might sound, have a better future and a better place for our children and grandchildren in the future. Thank you very much.
Hi folks, I'm just going to share screen and play a film for this, hopefully. Well, I hope that's working for you. And that will keep me to time as well. There we go. So I'm James Macpherson, Artisani. For those of you who don't know me, I've been making outdoor arts for 30 years. And the last 4 years, I've been doing a PhD looking at audiences, about the way audiences behave in public space with performance. And I thought it might be useful in these strange times to share this with you and make it available as well. So the main thing that I do is time lapse, as you can see for the film, and 3 reasons really. One is it's really convenient to watch long periods of audiences. You can watch a day in 5 minutes. Another is GDPR. I rise above it because you can't identify anyone, so it doesn't involve personal information. But the real reason is this improper timescale reveals patterns and movements that you don't otherwise see. So I've got 3 quick points to make. The first is there's this data set that I've got. It's open source, which is the sort of academic gold standard now, and you can access it. I'll put the link in the chat in a minute. And it shows behaviours which relate to proxemics, about distancing, and hopefully we can learn from it. I certainly have, and I think one thing that I've realised is after having done it for 30 years. I didn't really know what was happening at the back of the audience. I didn't really see the audience as a whole. I didn't see the fluidity of the audience. The second is this methodology that I developed potentially is used to document and evaluate our new ways of working. Because at some point we've got to think about not just how we work in a distance environment, but whether or not the strategies that we're developing for working in that environment are working or not. And using these analytics that I've been developing will help to do that. And then the third thing, just a little thing, and it's a specific piece of evidence-based knowledge that has come out of really studying that. And that is what I always thought, I suppose, is that outdoor arts are fundamentally different from indoor arts. They're fundamentally different from digital arts. And one of the key reasons are these rhythms and movements and patterns and flows that happen in outdoor arts audiences. So this little film that's on at the moment, Desperate Men in Halifax, I did a really in detail frame by frame analysis of this show. The audience numbers, who came, who went, where they came from, who they went from, where they went from, sorry. And that's what I found, is that you can't look at stills, you've got to look at flows of people if you want to think about how audiences operate in outdoor arts. There's such a massive throughput changeover of audiences that even considering an audience as a static body doesn't really make sense. And you can compare that, the patterns that you see now, you can compare that to what's happening in an auditorium. So I did a few comparative studies in indoor auditoriums. Look at this one, and then the next one will roll on in a minute, which is the kind of thing that you get in an indoor auditorium. We're totally different. So this information is available. I'm available to talk about it and to assist if anyone is interested in using it, either in developing their own strategies, because I think it's useful to look at this material first. There's 18 festivals documented, or to document, evaluate the things that they are going to do, or if they just want any advice or to know where to get these cameras. That's me.
Hey, thank you very, very much to all of you, to Martin, Louise, Mary and James. We have gone a little bit over time, so unfortunately, I mean, do put your questions up so we can, and your comments into the chat room, but just so you know that anybody you would like to talk to, they will be going into their own breakout groups. So you can talk to Martin, he'll be running breakout group number 1. Louise will be running breakout group number 4, and Mary will be, I'm not quite sure, Mary, could you put a note up as to where you and James, where you're going to be in the chat room, please? But now we're going to go over to the next session, the artist presentation, and we invite Angus Farquhar to make the first presentation. We're expected to see Angus, then Seth Honor, Luke Jerram, Angie Dite, Orem Sanchez-Camez, Zoe, Elian Morris, and Jen Patterson.